All right, Congressman Charles Rangel represents New York's 13th Congressional District. He's a founding member of the Congressional Black Caucus and a leading civil rights advocate. I spoke with him earlier about the president's policing reforms. Congressman, welcome to Arise America. And I got to tell you, the president could have picked a better city than Camden to highlight his task force on 21st century police initiatives there. Of course, it has one of the highest crime rates in America. The one thing we know about this initiative, Congressman, and of course you probably know about this well, is to limit federal programs that would supply military-style equipment to local police forces. That's one thing. Could you tell us about some of the other things this initiative will be responsible for overseeing and looking at?
But let me make it perfectly clear. What's happening in the Fergusons and the Baltimores and God forbid, Camden is really a symptom of a terrible disease that has struck our nation, and it's lack of education, period, and poverty. And so that while the president is to be commended for focusing national attention, and with my brother's keeper, inviting the private sector to join in, quite frankly, this amounts to a strong, rich country having a cancer, and that is lack of education, poverty, lack of jobs, school systems that are not working, and quite frankly, it doesn't put us in the best position to meet the ongoing international competition that this nation, if we are going to maintain our lead in trade and commerce, we will not be able to face it.
Understandably, Congressman, we're going to talk more about my brother's keeper in the next segment. I know that's near and dear to you. But I want to focus back on the community policing here, specifically some of the initiatives that the president has introduced today in the city of Camden. One thing that we know that he's talked about, and I think there's a general consensus of agreement on it, is the use of body cameras.
Well, there's a general consensus that this would be of great assistance, not only to the victims, but to the policemen too, to have them to be able to show that they used necessary force in making certain they apprehend those people that have to be arrested. And so it would be different if we relieved all of our major cities of the fiscal responsibility, because some communities just can't afford to have these cameras. And as you pointed out earlier, you know, I've been in combat, and there's something fearsome about seeing tanks rolling down the street. You don't get the impression that they are there to help the community when they come in. And so I'm glad that there's some handles put on them, because policemen, like other people in uniform, and I say that as one who's worn the uniform for 4 years, something happens to your mind when you see this type of power available to you. And it's really, in many, many cases, not necessary.
Congressman, also in this initiative here, he's talking about more boots on the ground in these neighborhoods and that actually how the police interact with the community. But there's some other things here I want you to comment on that seem to be more administrative in scope. One is the White House Police Data Initiative, and also the other is community policing grants. How will these two things actually help when they seem to be more administrative in scope and nature?
Let me make it clear. I'm straining because I do believe that focus and attention on these issues are important. But let me make it clear, with all of the paperwork and clerical applications that have to go here, we have to have a war against poverty in this country. It's a disease that's growing and blistering in our communities. And it's not going to take any of these programs is like giving an aspirin to a advanced cancer patient. You're not going to bring back decent housing and decent schools, bring in tanks and boots on the ground. What you're going to have to do is to concentrate and to make certain that you got to bring back a community. It's abundantly clear that the trillions of dollars that we spend on the military, what we need in our cities is a drop of in the bucket compared to the monies that we put out there. We got to have a youngster believe when he's born and being raised that he can be somebody. And you can't legislate and give grants for self-esteem. It's going to take some time. But it did take some time. When we were struck by the Japanese in World War II, we weren't prepared for war. But it was an all-out effort. Everyone had to do something.
Absolutely.
Everyone had to learn something. And that's where we are now. And the president only has about 18 months to do something dramatic.
Right. I've got one more question before we break off here. Before our next segment, we want to talk about my brother's keeper. But here in New York City, of course, you represent Harlem. It's reportedly that many blacks are disenchanted or upset with Mayor Bill de Blasio and what he perhaps has not done to better community policing. We know that he ran on the whole initiative of stop and frisk. Are you as critical of the mayor, or do you think that he could probably be doing more to satisfy the concerns and complaints of black citizens in New York City?
You know, when we had Mayor Bloomberg, who had a fixation for stop and frisk, it wasn't a policy change that took place. The court said that this was illegal, unconstitutional, and to stop it. And we ought to make it abundantly clear that Police Commissioner Bratton and the mayor are dead wrong on the issue of enforcing by the criminal laws crimes that are not of violence. And let me tell you why. It's not that the community are not concerned with people urinating and breaking these laws. They can do all of this by summonses. You don't have to give a kid a criminal record for drinking a can of beer on the stoop. And two, people don't really know that we have more kids in jail, especially black kids, than all the countries in the world together. And over 98% of these kids never went to trial. Plea bargaining is one of the worst forms of criminal justice that you can have, because the kid has to decide guilty or not guilty, whether they're going to plead guilty in order to go home for the first offense, or take a gamble with a jury and probably do 2 or 3 years.
I'll tell you, that segues right into our next segment on Brother's Keeper. Thank you for being with us, and we're going to join us once again after this break. We'll be right back with more with Congressman Rangel right here on Arise America. Stay with us.